Hey everyone, Mark here. Welcome back to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. Ryan is in one of those directions on the screen. Um, Ryan, Robert Eggers
Yeah.
is a director that makes some weird movies.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about his third, but his first two, Witch
hmm
and The Lighthouse.
hmm
I think we both liked Witch,
yes. Like
the
I
first film.
really, really like Witch.
Um, I think we're split on The Lighthouse.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, I don't know how. I don't remember how you feel. I wasn't as big on it as some people.
I see, and I loathe very few films, and I hate that movie.
Okay.
I
Well,
just
and
nothing about it is appealing to me, and it's not even Robert Pattinson's fault. And I love
no, no,
Willem
no, no,
Dafoe.
no. No, yeah. I mean, that's. I mean, I think it's fair to that's a. But that's not a bad thing necessarily because it means you have a director who's making some bold choices rather than just making pedestrian films or whatnot. So inevitably, if they're, you're not necessarily going to like everything, particularly because he's not sticking to one genre,
No,
and that's kind of what's exciting because they're, I mean, certain directors that I like really don't branch out nearly as much as they probably should. So
yeah. Well,
and
so let's okay. So, which was a colonial America religious film?
yes,
The
with
Lighthouse was
real
a
with real witches.
with real
That's
witches. The
yes,
Lighthouse, kind of a turn of the century ish.
yeah,
Uh, you know, just a nice
character
little
piece.
period character piece.
Yeah,
So now he jumps back 700-800 years from Witch to the Northman,
yeah,
and now we're Vikings. Um, Starring Alexander Skarsgård as our titular Northman. Nicole Kidman plays Bang, Anya Taylor-Joy, Ethan Hawke, and Willem Dafoe, who
yeah.
has a minor part. And I will mention her for you. Bjork makes an appearance.
Yes, Bjork does make an appearance.
Bjork makes an appearance. I know you were happy about that. Um,
Yeah, well, yeah. Well,
so
yes,
this man, I'll tell you what, the period is great. You start getting into just straight up Norse Viking period stuff, it's gonna be interesting.
yeah. Well, and particularly when you approach it not as those crazy stories that they told, but as these. I mean, not actual history, but at least the characters and the things that are happening in the film. It's very real.
So, yeah,
There's not like
it's
it's not.
authentic.
Yeah, there's not like it's not what like I don't know. They're not they're it's a, taking the lore seriously, but
Yes.
not I guess presenting it in a way that is there's nothing goofy about the gods or the Valkyrie or the whatever. It's
Well, and to
uh,
be fair, most of this film isn't really about
no,
that. I mean, it's more day to day ho hum humdrum,
sure,
if you could say such a thing, Viking life.
yeah,
But yeah,
but
but there,
when
he's got his magical overtones.
yeah, when it comes time to for those aspects of the folklore to appear, he doesn't like go, okay, now this is silly, folks. I know, it's a more of a matter of fact presentation, and again, it's kind of like what he did with The Witch. Most art house films, when they're dealing with witches, would then turn it into, well, there's not really a witch. That's the crucible aspect or whatever.
Yep.
But he's a director that clearly likes to play in genre,
Mm-hmm.
but approaches them like they're high art. I guess I don't know how to put it, but
Yeah, no,
uh,
that's fair. He plays it straight. He takes it as far as it needs to go, but he doesn't over embellish. Not real. I mean, not as much as Hollywood could do. Um,
no, absolutely not.
but yeah, so in the Northman, this is a I want to say a fairly standard revenge tale, because it really kind of is.
Yeah.
You know, boy has father,
Sure.
father gets
Well,
killed, father gets betrayed and killed.
It's the source material for Hamlet.
Well, it's the source material for lots of stuff. And thank
Well,
you.
yeah,
You
yes.
I mean, because I walked out and I said it's Greek, it's Shakespearean, and it is above all, it is Norse.
But yeah. So yes, the story, and it's one of those things where it's like, how did this story pop up in so many different cultures? But it is one of those kind of universal, the son revenging the death of the father, and kind of reluctantly, I think would be, the kind of having to grow into that role.
Well, and that's actually weird, because this will get us to Bjork for you. So he's young. He's like 10 or something, I think. Ish 10 in that 10, 12 in this, when his father is betrayed and killed. And he is supposed to be killed at the same time. And like all great Greek / Shakespearean stories, that does not happen.
No.
And so he flees. And later in life, something happens and he comes back. So in this case, it's an encounter with slavers who are taking slaves that he captured someplace. And then he encounters Bjork, and it turns out that he's basically blocked out his entire childhood. And he was raised by the people that took him in after he ran off. And he was a berserker, which I just thought was great.
Yeah.
Now, if you're familiar with the berserker legend.
Well, and there's a crazy brutality to them. So it's like, oh, these are the good guys, and oh my gosh, or theoretically the good guys. This is our hero. This is his team, and man, they're dirty. They're nasty. They do horrible things.
Well, as brutal as life was and regular combat was, the berserkers just take it up a notch.
Well, yeah, my thought was, we live in a society now that wants war to be civilized. And I thought it was pretty, a statement in that, war is not civilized.
No.
War is brutal and horrible.
And it should be brutal and horrible. I think that's what people forget. War should be brutal and horrible.
And, that's
what keeps us from doing it.
Well, yeah, it should be. People who go to war are innately not really good people necessarily. I mean, I guess it depends on why you go to war, but just in the modern context,
right.
But you can't. Someone doesn't invade a country to be nice to them.
No, not traditionally.
Anyway, so
no, that's that. Yeah, that's a parallel. But I mean, just talking about just the phenomena of combat.
Yeah.
Yes. If you're defending yourself or whatever, if a nation is defending itself, or if you're trying to take, whatever it is, I mean, but the cost of war should be clear and painful, because that is the thing that theoretically makes war the last resort.
Yeah.
And I think, and I've said it, war gets easier the farther you are from it.
Yeah.
And society and even militaries now, whole militaries are so far removed in general from that aspect of what war actually is, that it's very easy to say, well, we're going to take military action.
Yeah.
And the berserkers are like, nah.
Hand to hand, right up to here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally in your face.
Yes. And through your face aspect. And yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
So then he he infiltrates to attempt to revenge, and that's when things start really becoming more mystical, because that's when legends start to play a factor, whether they're legitimate or not, but the mythology of the Norse people is an influence, and whether or not Anya Taylor-Joy is actually an earth witch, she can do things, or is she just really smart and manipulative?
You know, and
You know,
and yeah, you know, for me, I prefer to think that she actually is this witch type.
yeah,
Because for me, you know, the world thing about fantasy films is the reason why I like fantasy films is because they're innately more interesting than the world we live in.
yes,
And what I like about this is it's based on a world that actually people believed in. I
hmm,
mean, the folklore and everything of this, this is not fiction to the people who told these stories. This is, you know, how it was. So
yep,
I tend to prefer to think, you know, she's really a witch, or, you know, and what that means is not, I guess, traditional witchcraft, but it's
right,
kind of what, you know, apothecary, and I don't know, you know, all
yep.
sorts of, anyway, but it's just sort of a, but I love that.
Oh yeah, no, I do too. I think it's a great, it is what makes fantasy films. I mean, yeah, because our world is just kind of inherently boring, because there's not a lot of mystery. I mean, but
Yeah,
yeah,
people are
yeah,
people are
people are
terrible.
people.
Yeah,
but no, so we get, we have her earth witchery, herbal mushroom or more. And we have, was Bjork real, or was Bjork like a manifestation of his remembering the trauma of his
sure.
childhood? Um, was he hallucinating a Valkyrie later on? Uh, but it is,
He would say no, and
he would,
that's,
exactly. Well, yes, he would say, because it was real to him.
yeah, and that's, you know, he's our, literally for most of this film, he is the, you know, our way through, and we see things through his eyes,
Absolutely.
as a little boy, then as a parent, and he believes in what these things happen, and so if he believes as an audience member, I'll believe.
Yeah.
I'll
Um,
do it.
but yeah, so we talked about the stories. It's timeless. Like I said, it's Greek, it's Shakespearean, but it is, overall, it is incredibly, it is Norse in that it is brutal,
Mm.
and it is beautiful at the same time. Um, it's it's a beautiful film, just filled with brutality.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I mean, there's a reason why, you know, Vikings are one of the ancient cultures or whatever that seems to stick to a certain degree. You know, I mean, that we there's something about what the way they saw the world and the way they lived that speaks to us for some reason.
yeah. Um, and then the movie ends in a very Shakespearean way.
Mhm.
Uh, I loved it when I came out. I was really happy with it. My wife went with me, and she told me later, she was, after the first 10 minutes, she goes, I was out. She was just
Really.
done. Yeah, she
Mm.
just checked out at that point. So this is not for everyone. I mean, like I said, I was split on Egger's first two movies. So I was really hoping this would be more witch than Lighthouse, and it is for
Yeah.
me.
Of yes, if you're gonna, yes. Although, but it's not really like The Witch all that much,
No, but
in that, well, for one thing, it cost $70 million to make.
and the witch probably costs,
One, maybe two,
yeah,
you
right,
know. Um, but yeah, and it's just there's a lot more going. I mean, The Witch is a pretty slow burn. This
yeah,
isn't necessarily. I wouldn't call this a slow burn in the same way
yeah.
that was.
No. There's a lot happening here.
Yeah. So
Some of it
you know,
is action, and some of it is behind the scenes action, behind the scenes going on. But it's not. There's not a lot of dead frames in this.
yes, it's there's yeah, it's a lot of atmosphere, but there's a lot, you know. But
There's,
what makes this film really unusual, and I got to talk to Alexander Skarsgård a little bit about this, was typically in a film of this size, it's going to be a multi-camera setup,
yeah,
and what they've done in this film is he's literally uh, using the one camera setup. So they have these scenes that are, you know, extended takes that you're right there on top of the stuff as it's happening, but because it's not cutting away, you feel really honestly like you are there, and it's hard to imagine, you know, that how the camera actually fits into any of this. It's almost like
It's a lot of handheld work.
yeah, but and it's all choreographed, and it's so they would work, you know, you screw up, you have to start over.
Yeah.
And so these shots, there's an intensity to them, and kind of this just this I you know, it just feels so radically different than a big budget film usually does.
Yeah.
It's so immersive, and you're just stuck in the middle of this world with them. It's almost as if, you know, you're like, you know, Yoda on his shoulders or whatever.
Yeah.
Because you're just right there, and it doesn't really feel like a movie as much as it feels like you're witnessing an experience or something.
Yeah. It's
You
like
know,
I said, I really enjoyed that. But it's
I
not going to be for anybody, or it's not going to be for everybody.
no. I mean, but for me, it was a thrilling sort of experience.
I didn't realize that they'd only used one camera.
Yeah, it's a one camera, and we taught, you know, and so they had to rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and practice all those fights. And
I was
the
going to
way
say
that
there's some intricate stuff.
yes, and you know, so it's a really unusual way of making this. I mean, it's, if you want to be on, if we're going to be honest, it's crazy. It's nuts. You know, to have a film that has that much action and fighting and whatnot, and have to do it in single takes, and it's not a gimmick. Sometimes people, you know, they do these films and it's a single take, and
Yeah.
or they make it look like it's a single take, and that's kind of the, you know, they don't really, this one, it's not about that so much as it's just, you're, like I said, you're stuck in the middle of this crazy violent world.
It's just the logical way to put the audience where he wants them.
Yes.
Which I'm cool with that.
And, you know, and what I thought was interesting, and I've seen some people reacted in a couple different ways to this, I think he actually shows a general sense of restraint when it comes to the violence, because a fair amount of it happens right off frame. And then when it doesn't, because as you said, it's a very violent movie. So, but when it doesn't happen off frame, it then has kind of this, you know, a real like, oh, wow, that's really horrific.
Yeah.
And if the whole thing was horrific, you kind of forget. You'd become, you know, just kind of accustomed to the horrible brutality of it. But instead, he kind of, you know, at times the gore is maybe at a distance, or I mean,
we see up to, and then we see the result.
Yeah,
but you don't see that one scene, that first big scene after he goes, comes to mind,
yes,
where you don't actually see the violence. You see what the result of the violence.
Or like the way that, I mean, Ethan Hawke's character at one point has, he has a pretty vicious wound.
Yeah,
but it's not like you don't go up to it. It's shadowed and it's in the dark, and you kind of have, you know, I found myself going, oh, I really like a better look at that. You know, what are we looking at here? It looks horrible, but you know, but then sometimes, you know, you see exactly what happens when it's a hard object hits a human skull or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's but I do think that he showed far more restraint than he could have, and that by doing so, it makes those scenes where there are, you know, intense violence all the more intense.
Yeah, it's really impressive. It opens this Friday in theaters, and so it's going to open wide. It's going to be, I think it's going to do pretty decent numbers.
I have no idea. I read
yeah,
it. I mean,
well,
it's such a fair. I mean, originally the film was supposed to be 50 million. COVID pushed it up to 75. Some places are insisting that it costs 90, but
it costs a lot.
anyway, it costs a lot of money, and um, and a lot of that. I don't think there's a lot of CGI in this.
Only
There
the
might be,
volcano.
yeah. I mean, but you know what I mean. But generally speaking, there might be a few things here or there. But I mean,
No, it's all pretty practical.
yeah.
Practical and on site. Oh, before we get before I finish it, let's just say, what did you think of the accents?
I didn't really take note, I guess.
Because Norse, I mean, it's kind of like Scottish accents, when people try to do them and do them badly. But we have American people, English people, and Australian people doing Norse accents. And I think the most egregious one is Nicole Kidman, because she never doesn't sound like Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
But they're hard, and it didn't take the film not a lot, but I hear accents more because my brain tends to want to use them if I hear them for too long. So if they feel wrong, or if they're jarring to me, they stick out. And like I said, all of these, because it's not like they're speaking Norse with subtitles. It's like when you would, the old Eastern German accent or Eastern European accent. What is that? Well, it's just Eastern European,
sure.
From the Cold War. So I think these accents are more flavor of Norse than trying to be really accurate, except possibly for Claes Bang, who's from, he's Danish.
Yeah.
So, he's probably closer than the rest of them.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, honestly, I didn't really think about him that much.
No.
And I think partly because, that it's not 100% authentic. But I didn't really think that's it's an interesting thing.
Yeah. Like I said, for some reason, accents get in my brain. So, I mean, it was like when we were talking about when I watched Snatch the other week, and you asked if I watched with subtitles, and I was like, no, because I knew what it was going in, and I caught more than I thought. So it's just, it's something my brain clues me into. But yeah, so no, so the Northman opens this Friday. I think it should do in the 20s. That's my guess. It's going to be in the 20s.
I'd like to see this film do kind of a slow burn. I'd love to. I mean, I would love it to be a massive hit, but
right.
I don't think that's the sort of film. I mean, this is the sort of thing where I'm kind of shocked that the movie got made,
right?
In a way, and that's not because it's not a good movie, but because it's not traditional.
Yeah,
and it is different, even to. Like the Vikings TV show or whatever.
Yeah, right. Who did this? Oh, this is Focus.
Focus. Yeah, Focus did this.
So Focus takes a few more risks.
Well, yeah. Focus,
I mean, they're not A24.
Well, no, but they're working in a bigger budget. They're risk. I mean, A24, the budgets of their films are much less than this.
Yes.
So this is. And then and A24 did the first two, of his films. Yeah, Eggers films. But this is gutsy.
Yeah.
And I'd love for them to not take a loss on it. For a lot of reasons, but one reason is because I actually really, really like the movie, and would love to see more directors allowed to kind of. I mean, this is a very Eggers film. It feels very much like his movie and the sort of movie he would make. And I almost feel like I don't know anyone else who would make this kind of particular film in this way. And that's exciting to me.
Well, and it depends on what you consider this kind of film. If you mean a film that the director wants to make in pretty much the way he wants to make it, you could make the argument that, say, even though he's got a few more films under his belt, you could kind of say that when Ryan Johnson made Knives Out.
Sure. Well, or I mean,
You know what I mean? That was a
considered
film that who's going to make that movie?
just him. Yeah.
Just him. Yeah, just him. So clearly
Well,
two completely different movies, but
well, yeah, but it's that whole, and there are a few directors that are given that sort of freedom. I mean, Nolan gets that freedom,
right.
And they shot this on film as well.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Nolan's going to get freedom to make $150 million film.
Yeah, but
Eggers is not going to get freedom to make a $150 million film.
But the fact that his third film in got 70
got a whole lot of leeway. That does say something. But yeah, I mean, yeah. Will his fourth film be 100 million?
This isn't. I don't know, but this. Well, typically what happens is, at least in the modern environment, is someone to jump up to that level has to do a Marvel movie or a DC movie,
right?
So the fact that he's doing, this film with that kind of budget is really gutsy by Focus.
Yeah.
And I hope that, that love or hate the film, that people would appreciate the fact that they rolled the dice on this one. And that's not something that I think really many other, if any, studios would be willing to do.
Right. Real quick. I hope it opens good. Like I said, in the 20s. But you're right. I hope it lasts a while. So that's really what I'm hoping for. But I definitely want people to see it. But it is opening against two other films this week, yes, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But